am actually going to need you to grab the laptop. I didn't think about that till just now.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. Yeah, hi. This could be a very short live stream because of internet issues. But hello, I'm Brittany. This is a cat. He's
Pretty
very
boy.
pretty. His name is Pretty Boy. And also the wife are hopping in to say hello for the top of this stream. We're going to try to cope with whatever the internet throws our way because it's being very unreliable at the moment. But if it dips out like entirely, then I will just hop right back on as soon as I can. It's looking like it's gonna be okay for a second though. It's a high wire act, this live stream. So,
My cat is snoozing.
yes, he will just, he's not bothered by the lights.
Well, he's also a rag doll, so you pick him up.
He's not
he
really
goes
bothered
left.
by anything.
Exactly.
Most things. And yet he jumps at his own shadow.
He does.
That's very true.
Look at that sweet boy.
Yeah. No.
The love.
It's been 3 years of Gaywatch, and I'm still coughing.
Ooh, ooh.
She is here to say hi. She will probably stop in about halfway through and then like at the end as well to just like check in and see how my mental health is deteriorating from having to make decisions related to things.
I would stay the whole time, but my wife is kicking me out, y'all.
Yeah, I got a lot of stuff happening that I've never done before for this stream, so
really
I need the less I can have going on, the better, because I already have like a lot going on. But here's what's happening for this stream.
Do you want me to get the laptop?
I am yeah. I need to grab the laptop for me. So I can actually see what's going on with the stream, because with the way I have to have it right now, I literally don't see anything. I cannot see the chat actually at the moment. I will be able to in a second when I get the laptop up and going. But so here's what's happening. I am tier ranking everything I've ever reacted to in these past 3 years. I've put as little thought into this as possible because the whole idea is that I am ranking this live and having to make decisions live. And the thing is that I take stuff like this a little too seriously, and like it feels like the entire weight of the world hangs on whether or not I enjoyed a show a lot or just a little. Like that's just how my brain works.
I have it separated so the video's over here in the chat.
No, yeah, I need to. Yeah, no, it's fine. I need to get it set up in a separate thing because I can't be watching the actual stream. I have to be on my page.
Oh, that's fair. It was
yeah,
on my account.
yeah. No,
Sorry.
that's fine. It's the glories of live.
Can I get you some water or something?
Doing something live. I did also forget to grab my water. Lenjen should be sitting on the.
I was just gonna get. Do you want your thumb?
No. I need. Lenjen is just sitting on. The. Oh, this is great. I'm supposed to do a live stream for the next couple hours, and I really just blanked out on the word countertop. He's not? He should be. Okay, I was about to say. Oh, right. She got the co-hosts confused. Which is understandable because there are a few of them at this point. Yeah, I name my mugs like a regular normal person. I don't. This is a normal habit that just people have. Really, it wouldn't be it wouldn't be a Gaywatch live stream for like an anniversary thing like this if it wasn't this kind of chaos at the top.
That's true.
Yeah, it really wouldn't be. Thank you, darling.
You're welcome.
Yeah. No, you're gross. All right. So I hope the display is large enough for you guys, because whatever I did, it just seemed to be kind of small, which is why I'm kind of in the corner video wise, and I tried to give you guys as much of the real estate as possible. So to start off, I'm going to explain the tiers because they are not readily understandable to anyone who's not in my brain. So here's how we will be ranking things today. At the very top, the best of the best. First of all, this is all based on my favorite, how I personally enjoyed it. If I was making a list of the best, what I viewed to be objectively the best series that I have watched, series and movies that I have watched so far on Gaywatch, the list would be a little bit different because I firmly believe in that, you know, you can like things that aren't objectively like the greatest thing you've ever seen, right? I very firmly believe that. Now I'm also me and a writer, so I tend to gravitate towards the things that are more like objectively well done. However, there are some very important exceptions that we will be getting to today in which my enjoyment and its quality are not doesn't stop me from enjoying it to the fullest. So this is based on purely my opinion and my enjoyment. I'm not trying to be objective in any way, shape, or form. So that is directly reflected in these tiers. So the very first tier, at the very, very top, I've labeled part of my psyche because every so often I will watch something that I don't just love and appreciate and is just one of the greatest things that I've ever seen that and impacts me deeply on like an emotional and artistic level. It can do all of that and yet still not wind up as part of my psyche. The things that wind up as part of my psyche, like, it's really hard. I can't explain what puts something into this category. I just know it when it happens. So this is the very top, like, I am going to write fan fiction for this. I am going to plan fan videos for this. I am going to, if it's a book series, I buy it. If it's a video thing, I make sure that I have them all on my computer in the highest quality. I rewatch it regularly. I am part of the fandom. I probably have a side blog for it in one way, shape, or form on Tumblr. It's a massive, it just becomes part of my personality. It an annoying part of my personality more often than not. It's the top of the top. The real, one of the biggest things is feeling the need to like create things for it. If it actually gets me doing the fanvid and the fanfic thing, even if I never wind up making those fanvids or those fics and everything, because executive dysfunction being what it is, it's still there. It's still now just a fundamental part of like who I am and how I move through the world. And I have indeed experienced more than one a series or film on this channel that has made it to permanent part of my psyche. God tier there's a very thin line between God tier and part of my psyche. It can affect me in all the same ways, but there's something about it that doesn't quite make me go on the full tilt fangirl spree. I will rewatch it on a definitely at least once on a semi-regular basis, if at all possible. I will analyze it, I will reference it, I will take it apart, I will love it dearly, I will spend a lot of time thinking about it. But something about it keeps it from being the ultimate, like, I guess, fan devotion obsession experience. But I would still like recommend it to anybody who will listen. I will go on and on about it and all the things that I love about it. I still love it to absolute pieces. It's just a little titch down from literally becoming part of my psychological makeup for whatever reason. The one down from that is Adored, and sometimes it's like, I love that. I might rewatch it like once or maybe like very like rarely, but like I adored it. I had a great time while watching it. I got like, it was shippable, it was gay, it was a great time. Yeah, sure. I adored it. I may not recommend it to everybody who will listen. You know, I may just be like, oh, you already like things like this? You should definitely give that a shot because you would absolutely enjoy it. That kind of thing. And then down here below adored is shippable, whereas like maybe I won't feel the need to rewatch it necessarily. Maybe it depends, but I might because I at least found the couple in question, or a couple in, doesn't matter what kind of show, in question, to be like very shippable. I really shipped them. Maybe I didn't enjoy the show around them so much, but I still found something really special about them that at least carried me through the rest of the series and makes me at the very least like appreciate and enjoy the rest of the series. But it is mainly about them and not necessarily about loving everything about the show. Pardon me. And then down here we have enjoyed, because the really freakish thing about Gaywatch so far, after 3 damn years and 40 plus reactions, is that I have ultimately enjoyed every single thing I've watched. It may not be a fave. It may be something that I'm like, oh, that was nice. I'm glad I saw that. Don't feel a need to watch it again, probably, but I don't feel like I wasted my time. I wasn't, you know, bored, or I didn't dislike the experience, but it was just, you know, I'd probably give something in the enjoyed tier if we were going by like stars. Enjoyed would probably be like 3 stars. Watched it, finished it, you know, enjoyed it, and I can take that and move on from it. But there has not been anything that I have watched for Gaywatch that I have ultimately like disliked and had a bad time, which really makes me look like a pushover in terms of the channel, because it looks like I love everything. But I guess between the combination of giving you guys things to vote on, specifically now patrons, giving you things to vote on in terms of what I watch, and me making the list and you voting on the thing, seems to be a really, really good combination that gets me amazing things to watch and just has a very, very high hit ratio. So those are the tiers we're working with today. I am not including anything that I haven't finished. So like right now I'm in the middle of watching Sleuth of the Ming Dynasty over on Patreon, but I have not finished it yet. I'm not even halfway through yet. So obviously I don't know where I'm going to put it on my ranking. I have, however, finished The Eighth Sense, even though not all of it has wound up on YouTube yet, or even on Patreon yet, but I have finished it. So it will be ranked. It is in here to be ranked. I don't know if you can see it. I think they wound up being in alphabetical order for whatever reason. So that is what is happening. If it goes too fast, if I sort this in like, you know, 20 minutes or half an hour, and we just have so much more time left to talk about gay shit and watch me have a mental breakdown because me committing to rankings like this is an experience, then I will actually go into each of the separate tiers with whatever winds up in which tier and try to rank them within the tiers. So I will actually try to put them in an order, which terrifies me to even say, but I'll do it. I'll try. I've never made a decision in my life. It's my God-given prerogative as a bisexual. So who knows how this is going to turn out. I just thought it would be a fun thing to do to celebrate the anniversary of Gaywatch. And, you know, watching people have psychological meltdowns over, you know, fictional gay shit is always a good time. So let's go. We're literally just going to go in the alphabetical order it has. I'm just going to pull the next one in the queue, so to speak. So we are literally starting out with Bad and Crazy. This is already difficult because it's that fine line for me between part of my psyche and God tier. It did inspire me in a sense that I kind of combined it with this other thing. For lack of a better word, kind of this other story that I found really just inspiring from a creative standpoint. So this show did give me a creative oomph, but like not to the extent sort of that I mean when I talk about it became part of my psyche. I have not rewatched it yet, which is a crime. I've been meaning to. I just haven't had the time and or bandwidth to start on Bad and Crazy. This is the show that made me officially fall in love with Lee Dunhua, and it has a very, very special place in my heart. It might graduate to part of my psyche, maybe, especially like on a rewatch, but I think for now it's gonna go in God tier, but it's really close. And like, that might seem a little bit high. I can understand why, if you've seen the show, I can understand why the main conceit of the plot, to not be spoilery, may keep some people from either shipping it, or it might be too much work on the fans' end in order to make something like that work. That never stops me though. Like, I am thoroughly willing to have an extensive like AU headcanon running parallel in my head when I'm watching a show like that. But I will recommend it to anyone who ever listens. It's one of the best things I've ever seen. South Korea really took something, insane and made it work on a level that that show wasn't supposed to work, especially in the way that they did it. And it worked. And it was a goddamn good gay time simultaneously. I love it to pieces. I could cry that I haven't rewatched it. But I've got to put it in God tier with a likely upgrade. I don't know. I don't see, this is why this was a terrible idea. Because now I feel legitimately bad. It's fine. Bare minimum God tier. It's fine. But see, now I have the same problem with Beyond Evil, because I have not had an opportunity to rewatch it. It was legit. Hands down, if we're talking the objective list, this would be in the top tier. If this was a purely objective best shows that I've known, this would be in the top tier. It is one of the greatest pieces of art I have ever seen in my entire life. I will not shut up about it to anybody who will listen. It's one of the best crime stories I've ever seen, kind of ever. It now is a significant part of what defines the genre for me. Everything I watch after this, I have a handful of crime things that I will then compare it to, and Beyond Evil is one of those things. And it also just so happened to be delightfully, seriously, and subtly and not so subtly gay as hell. Does it tap into the whole part of my psyche ultimate fangirlish obsession thing? Not necessarily. But it's one of the greatest shows and you should watch it, and if you haven't, you should. If you haven't, I don't know what you're doing with your life. Like, legitimately. How can you not experience this? But at the same time, story being what it is, if you know you're maybe sensitive to some things, you should probably look up some trigger warnings, just kind of depending, because a lot of stuff happens. A lot of stuff happens in that show. But see, it's the same thing. I feel bad for not putting it in part of my psyche. Because see, I haven't rewatched it yet, and if I rewatch it, it could go on the... Okay, alright, it's fine. See, this is the part where we deep breath, we realize it's not that big a deal. It just feels like it. And we move on. This hurts me. Blooming is next. I think This is a tough one between God tier and adored. Because I loved Blooming. That's another South Korean thing, correct? It was more, it was a canonical BL series, whereas these first two were not technically canonical. This is a, you know, fully canon. It's a BL series. But it was one of your more like dramatic, subtle, grounded kind of things. Which is right up my alley in terms of BL series. And it was so well done, and I absolutely adored it. It hasn't stuck in my head as much as something as other things, which makes me think that it should probably go in adored. I am deeply looking forward to season 2 whenever they decide to give that to us. But and I do mean to rewatch it at some point in the future. It may not just be at the top of my list like a Bad and Crazy and a Beyond Evil rewatch might be. But they were so beautiful, and Blooming absolutely deserves a watch. And if you liked Blooming, you should watch The Eighth Sense, and if you like The Eighth Sense, you should watch Blooming. I feel like that Venn diagram is more like a circle. You've probably seen both. Good on you. Okay, Detroit Become Human. Detroit Become Human. Here's the... Okay. So, Detroit Become Human is absolutely part of my psyche. It is a... I almost feel no need to explain, but it also falls into something that I call literally in my head and nowhere else, so saying it out loud feels kind of silly. But I have a little running list of things in my head that I put under a category called like flawed favorites, in which I love it. It is part of my psychological makeup. It has deeply impacted me in fundamental ways of which I cannot describe. However, at the same time, I do acknowledge that it is not perfect. I will, however, spend a great amount of time debating with you in defense of it, because I feel like its heart was very much in the right place. And when that game is on fire in ways that make my throat close. So, Detroit is absolutely part of my psyche. 1000%. And I actually played this very recently, like just the other month. And I fucked up a part of the ending, but other than that, it was a pretty decent playthrough. And I really should play it more often, and now that I've finally played it for the channel, I will get to play it more often, because I won't be saving it for Gaywatch, so that's great. And it has inspired me creatively in 1.5 million different ways. I have, like, taken that, and it is now one of the things that I go back to, especially with sci-fi ideas and whatnot. The Devil Judge, surprising absolutely no one, no debate necessary, is part of my psyche. It's an annoying part of my personality. I am currently working on a full retelling of it. I hope to publish that like episode by episode. I have it fully outlined. Yes. It's either fully outlined or like 99.9% fully outlined in what's staying the same and what's changing. It's the Devil Judge. I don't know if this is not a surprise to anyone, especially not a surprise to patrons. You should watch it. Here's a good delineation between God tier and part of my psyche. If you want to understand me more as a person, you should watch the ones that are part of my psyche. They explain something about me as a human being that I cannot otherwise explain unless you watch these shows. You know? And the Devil Judge is very much a part of that. Obviously one of my favorite ships to ever exist. One of my favorite characters to ever exist. Kenyon is... Okay, I can't I'm already spending many, many, many hours talking with Janae Henning about The Devil Judge in a massive, post-mortem of the entire series, and I'm already writing a retelling. So I really probably shouldn't talk about The Devil Judge anymore. So we're just gonna, obvious, part of my psyche. Moving on. Dramatical Murder. I was finally able to play/read this on the channel. After waiting a very long time. They finally released a official English translation. The actual quality of the English translation wasn't bad. I can be nitpicky about prose in that sense. So it was ultimately like fine, and the story and everything around it was pretty damn great as well. I really enjoyed it. I had been waiting I've been waiting to experience my ship and the route in this visual novel for a very long time, and they did not let me down. But has it stuck in my brain? This is somewhere between adored and shippable. Because it was a whole ass experience playing this. And I loved the world. There were some story elements that maybe this is hard. Okay. But the ship did live up to my expectations, and they gave me everything I wanted from it. But this probably says something about me, that part of the way that I characterize this is that I judge, would I recommend it to people? How hard would I recommend it to people? I would very easily recommend it just if you're into this. But not necessarily like, if you're like, yeah, I like visual novels, I'm not really into like sci-fi or anything though, I wouldn't be like, oh, play it anyway. I would be like, no, it's only for dystopian vibes, and I guess that goes into shippable. My favorite thing and the strongest thing about it was indeed my ship. So that alone, why do I feel like I'm kicking a puppy? It's fine. It's fine. It is my own opinion that I am entitled to. This is what happens when an ADD people pleaser tries to have an opinion. Especially when there's nothing but positivity in these tiers. There is nothing about not liking anything on these tiers. I obviously, enjoyed and loved Dramatical Murder. We're just talking about the degree to which I enjoyed it. This should not be, I'm okay. This is fine. This is fine. We've only been doing this for, okay. So, The Eighth Sense. The Eighth Sense. Since I've just finished watching it, I only finished watching it like on what? Friday? This past Friday? So it's only been like days since I finished it. I did, however, I was kind of immediately thinking of a fan vid that I could make for it. And I did this. To narrow it down, this is definitely going somewhere between part of my psyche and God tier. It's just hard to tell, it being so recent. Although usually, one of the characteristics of something that becomes part of my psyche is that I usually know either towards the end or like even before it ends, I'm like, this is going to become an annoying part of my personality. And this is a really good example. I mean, honestly, all of these three in the God tier so far, Bad and Crazy, Beyond Evil, and The Eighth Sense, are really good examples of how much I can love something and how much I can get out of something and how much I could like still annoyingly talk about something without it somehow tripping that switch and becoming part of my psyche. Because I have a lot of things that I loved super intensely that still somehow don't make it up into that tier. It is the most subjective part of the tier, really. So I would say that The Eighth Sense goes into God tier. I will be rewatching it as soon as possible. And like will not stop rewatching it. I think it pretty solidly goes in God tier for now. And there have been some things though that kind of become part of my personality on rewatches and stuff. So really all the things so far in God tier stand a chance of getting up into part of my psyche at some point. It just kind of depends. So, Euphoria. This one's kind of a cheat because technically, I only ever reacted to the 2 episodes that come in between season 1 and 2, and then I think maybe also the first episode of season 2. I can't exactly remember. But for whatever reason, I never was able to get it together and post all of Euphoria season 2. I don't think. A patron can totally say I'm wrong in this stance. I don't know why I can't remember, which is hilarious because Euphoria goes into part of my psyche. If you want to understand me on a very deep artistic level, Euphoria and Rue is a great place, difficult place, intensely vulnerable place to start. For a lot of deeply personal reasons. She and I do not share the same addiction, but we do very much have addiction in common. And that show means the world to me. It's funny because I don't really have the fanish obsession about it, possibly because it's incredibly hard-hitting and difficult to watch a lot of the times. But it's also one of the greatest things I've ever seen in my entire life and speaks to me on several levels. But this is kind of the rare exception and part of my psyche. It doesn't make me want to write all the fanfic or make all the fan vids, well, possibly fan vids, or do all the things, but it will inspire me on a creative level going forward for several reasons. And it just explains a fundamental part of my soul. So, I mean, Euphoria, yes. Absolutely look up trigger warnings if you've never seen Euphoria before and you're going to dive into that. If you know that there are trigger warnings that you need in fiction, then yes. Everything Everywhere All at Once. Oh man. Okay. All right, so won like all of the Oscars and deserved fucking all of them. I think like it was such a it's such a deeply meaningful experience. I think this has to go into God tier, because I loved it. I cried. I sobbed. I understood a little something more about just being alive thanks to this film. It perfectly encapsulates not just being alive but especially being alive now, which was one of the whole points of the film. So kudos, they did it. But I suppose I understand the sillier elements. I know why they're there, and it would not be the same experience without them. It's not like I want them to get rid of them. But for me, some of the more absurd, ridiculous things I personally could have done without, which would have been a disservice to the movie itself. So that's purely a me thing. And also, it doesn't tip over into a part of my psyche situation, which I have now explained to like death. So I think Everything Everywhere solidly goes into God tier. It is one of the greatest things I've ever seen. And we all felt very seen. Well, okay, maybe not we all, but felt very seen in terms of, you know, queer daughter and her whole experience in the film. It just doesn't trip the wire, that weird, hard to pin down wire, for me. But it deserved all of the Oscars. I got genuinely emotional when it was winning all the Oscars because it fucking deserved it. Okay. Guardian. One of the many things that I have been meaning to rewatch for the longest time and haven't. This is Chinese Torchwood. And if I had reacted to Torchwood on here, which hopefully I will someday because I haven't watched it in like a decade, Torchwood would absolutely go into part of my psyche. 1000%. Guardian, I have not rewatched yet. And yet, I haven't been paying as much attention to it as I should. Poor Guardian has been neglected. And yet at the same time, there is so many things about it that I would okay. All right. Whereas Bad and Crazy, Beyond Evil, 8 Cents stand to upgrade from God tier to part of my psyche on rewatches, the reverse is true with Guardian. It absolutely feels like part of my psyche before I've done a full rewatch. It might titch down after we rewatch, but it absolutely feels that way at this moment in time. Guardian. Just Guardian. Really the other side of the Torchwood coin. And so it's honestly no surprise that it winds up as an annoying part of my psyche. But an annoying, neglected part of my psyche. I legitimately feel bad now. All right. The Guest. Slow burn gayness, absolutely. The opening half hour of The Guest is legitimately some of the scariest shit I've ever seen in my life. And I am a big horror fan. I've been watching horror for a very long time. And that first half hour, 40 minutes of The Guest scared the shit out of me in a way that's going to be hard to rewatch in the future because it was so terrifying. And then the rest of the this has to go in God tier. Cause just the whole experience from beginning to end. If you like crime, but you're not sure about the horror elements, I would still recommend it. Which is kind of a big thing. But the way it starts out really heavy with the horror and then blends more with crime on the way towards an ending that I can't talk about, Don't Make Me. It was so good and like satisfying and gave me everything I want, even with the gay. Also gave me a hot fashion walk priest. Like, hello? If they had done his hair differently, I probably can't say the rest of that sentence on a live stream. So, The Guest absolutely has to go to God tier. It is excellent. I loved it intensely. I will absolutely be rewatching. There's just it's like gut-wrenching and human and all about trauma. There are just so many things, along with like religious, like imagery, bullshit, exorcisms. Like, it's so up my alley in so many different ways. It really absolutely delivers and should go towards the top of a list of faves at 1000%. I regret nothing. The Handmaiden is one of my favorite films by one of my favorite directors. Period. End of story. And this was actually a delightful experience for me the first time I watched it, when it first came out in like, what was it, 2016? Because I didn't think it was gay. I was just showing up to watch it because it was done by one of my favorite directors. And then it turned out to be based on I think a sapphic story from the turn of the century. Not this most recent century, the other one. So like around the 1900s. I can't, it's just one of the greatest films I've ever seen in my entire life. And then also, it has to be one of my favorite sapphic love stories, kind of, period. So like, entirely god tier. I legitimately can't explain why it hasn't, tipped over into like part of my psyche, because God knows I've analyzed it. I've taken it apart to try to figure out how the fuck this guy told this story in this way, and made it just as unapologetically romantically queer as possible. Like, it's outstanding. It's outstanding. If I put it anywhere like less than god tier, then I would deserve to be shot. So, Hannibal. Hello, Hannibal. Hannibal is part of my psyche. 1000%. Hannibal is a part of me. Hannibal and Will are just a part of me. This show is so fucking special. As many opinions as I have about season 3, which is somewhat ironic since season 3 is the gayest season, which is saying something because Hannibal is just the gayest show. I can't, yeah. I just of course. I mean, it could not possibly be any other way with Hannibal. Yeah, there's really nothing else to say. What else can you say about Hannibal? Well, you could say a lot of things about Hannibal, actually. So many things. But, like, then we'd be here all day, and I'm already taking too long. So, for a complete tonal change, Happiest Season. This was the Christmas film with Kristen Stewart and, oh my god, I'm forgetting her name, Mackenzie Davis? And also Aubrey Plaza had an amazing supporting role in this. It brings up all of the contemporary queer experience, holiday feelings, closeted coming out, all of that jazz, while also giving us a movie in which Kristen plays a canonically queer woman. So like, how could I do anything else but adore it? I think it's very it's somewhat of a niche feeling for me. It's not something that I would recommend to like every queer person I came across. I might toss it out as like, oh, you like Kristen Stewart? You have to see Happiest Season. I mean, of course, you have to see Happiest Season. Because if you like Kristen Stewart, then I assume you're a queer girl in some way, shape, or form. And in which case, you should absolutely see Happiest Season. I would probably come with a little bit of wine to be prepared because it hits some very familiar queer experiences. Um, but it's not something like, for me, it's not something like The Handmaiden where I'm like, I don't care who you are sitting down and you are watching this movie so that you can have this experience in your life. It's not quite up there, but damn, did I have a time watching it. I was kind of a disaster, especially like in the second half. It just hit so many soft spots. You know, it just did. It came to do the thing, and it did the thing. Heartstopper, part of my personality. End of story. Argue with the wall. Heartstopper is I feel that not just my reaction to Heartstopper, but specifically my reaction to the season finale of Heartstopper really illustrates how much I love and adore this series. Season 2 drops on August 2nd. I'll be reacting to it with the wife, just in the same way that I did the end of the season, the end of season 1. It'll be with the wife. It will be thoroughly embarrassing because that show turns me into an absolute hysterical fucking mess. It is perfect. It is too perfect for words. It's very soft and kind and forgiving and romantic. But at the same time, they got such good actors and it's being treated in such a way and directed and handled in such a way that there's enough authenticity and like the believability is high enough to where it just hits a sweet spot that I cannot explain. And if you want to understand me better, you need to see Heartstopper. Yes. Heaven Official's Blessing. Why did I... Oh, okay. See, yeah, this is breaking a rule that I made up. So I said I wasn't going to be ranking anything that I hadn't finished yet. Because how could I? And 9 times out of 10, I'm correct. However, even though I'm only towards the end of Volume 3 of Heaven Official's Blessing, and I've seen Season 1 of the Donghua, I already know that this is part of my personality. I'm already there. I've already achieved it. It's already a thing. I've already gotten there. It's just a matter of... It's not even a matter of anything. I'm just there. It is 1000% part of my psyche. That's just how that works. That's how MXTX works. And we don't have time to talk about MXTX. Anyway, very obviously, Heaven Official's Blessing belongs as part of my psyche. Interview with the Vampire. Not the film, the series. Although damn, I haven't watched the movie in a long time. So I really should rewatch that as a reaction at some point. Let's see. I am so grateful for Interview with the Vampire's existence for so many reasons. And it's done so much. It's just done so much. And I could not be more excited for fucking season 2. It hasn't tilted over into becoming part of my psyche. But it is something deeply, deeply important. And just complicated. And God, you want to talk about just the unbelievable, messy... It has to... Oh... God tier. 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 That... It just does so much. It moves the needle for queer representation in America in so many really important ways that... And at the same time being so fucking good, and it has me in the palm of its hand 1000%. So how could it be anything but God tier? Let's be real. Let's be honest. Like, really. You could even say, no, see, I can't be like comparing and contrasting these shows because, again, we'll be here until 5 a.m. So, Killer and Healer. Killer and Healer. Killer and Healer. Killer and Healer. This show set a standard for cinematography in things that I have watched for this channel 1000%, because it was bonkers. The way they captured that show was simply bonkers. My interest in the plot kind of wavered to and fro at times. But then our main guys, and the things they were able to get away with in China when this show came out was ridiculous. This is gonna go down into shippable, because if/when, really, I were to rewatch it, I would almost definitely be skimming through a fair amount of the plot in order to get to the stuff that concerns the ship, right? So then I feel that that's an appropriate place to put that. If this was ranked on favorite cinematography, this would be in the top tier. I now compare it to like anything that's even remotely well shot. In my head, there is now even the Killer and Healer shot, which is in anything I see now, whenever there's shit piled up immediately in front of the camera, I think of Killer and Healer. And oh boy, if that doesn't really say something probably more about me than I realize, and not so much about, yeah. Kin Porsche. I'm actually in the middle of a rewatch because I'm working on the analysis for the second love scene, the one that happens at the end of episode 7 in front of the mirror. So I am in the middle of a rewatch, prepping for that. So, like, obviously, I spent an hour talking about, like, a 4-minute long love scene from that show. So very obviously it is part of my psyche. But it also, not unlike Detroit Become Human, is part of my whole flawed fave thing. I could talk about all the things that I feel could stand to be improved about Kin Porsche for a very long time. However, there is something about it. And there's something about the elements of it that I love to an almost unhealthy degree, to the point where I can spend an hour analyzing 4 minutes of an episode from that. Yes, there's a handful of fan vids that I would love to make to Kin Porsche someday, and maybe distantly, I'm doing the retelling of The Devil Judge, right? And I have an actual, like, fully like AU fic for The Untamed going on. Were I ever to do another fan fiction project again, more like The Devil Judge, more that's like a retelling, were I ever to do another one of those again, it would probably be Kin Porsche. Because I love it so much, but I'm looking at it going like, if we just did this instead of this. And I'm a deeply opinionated creative person. So if I were ever going to do something like a retelling ever again, it would be for Kin Porsche. Because it's Kin Porsche. It's such a delightful hard to quantify thing, but I love it so much, and you can pry it from my cold dead hands. A League of Noblemen. Ooh, a League of Noblemen. Okay. I also reacted to this. I finished this recently as well. On Patreon. And this was like, cinematography speaking, this is the only thing that I love more than Killer and Healer. But then again, also as a show, not only was there just a plethora of queer shipping choices, go ahead and pick yours, or maybe just make it a harem, I don't know. Not only was there just gayness everywhere, but I was also actually much more consistently engaged with the plot for A League of Noblemen. And everything that was going on from just a global show perspective. Whereas with, you know, Killer and Healer, I already explained, I kind of dipped out of the plot every so often. Like, I very clearly just, bare minimum, I just adored A League of Noblemen. This could almost be like kind of the namesake sort of for having a tier of called adored, because that's such a good word for it. I adored A League of Noblemen. It was a terrific time from start to finish. It had so much camera movement in it, and that is my weak spot, that it's the only thing that's ever had enough camera movement in my eyes. And the cinematography was ridiculous. It assaulted me with lanterns at every opportunity. The plot was really, what I recommended to, like, literally just anyone. If even someone who was like, I don't usually like historical dramas or historical shows, I would still recommend that they give A League of Noblemen a shot. So it's going in God tier. It's going in God tier. That was such a good show. Especially when you consider that there were definitely parts of it that were edited out within an inch of its life. And it still succeeded in all the ways that it succeeded. Like, get out of here. Get out of here. Leave me, like, just get out. Just get out. Manor of Death. The Kings of BL do a crime series. My hopes for this show was that they had given Max Tool a better opportunity to really showcase what they were capable of, because given what they had done before Manor of Death, it was very like, the show around them sucks. They are amazing. Please give them something worth their time. And I enjoyed Manor of Death for all the obvious reasons. It was a fun time. It was a great experience. But I did want it to be something more than it was. If I ever rewatch it, it will be for exclusively just because I'm kind of a whore for Max Tool, and like anything Max Tool, and I would definitely be skimming through anything that doesn't have to do with them. I feel like if they'd been given more of a budget, overall, it could have been one of my favorites. But there were a lot of things about it that just kept me from wanting to go as feral as I wanted to go. But I still had a good time, which is why the enjoyed tier exists. I still loved watching it. I still had a blast. I just love watching Max Tool. It's a very weird thing for me almost. They're almost an anomaly at this point. I just love watching them, even though the shows around them, they deserve better. Max Tool deserves better. If they ever come back, and God, I hope they do, I hope that Thai BLs will be in such a place that they can do right by the kings of BL. Thank you. The Merciless was a film that's part of a mega fandom that I went through that involved oh wow, I'm blanking on the other three. Even though I've watched all of them. I just can't remember which one was which ones were in it and which ones weren't. Oh crap. Strangers from Hell was another one. And was it really The Devil Judging Beyond Evil? Were the other two? I think maybe, somebody correct me. But The Merciless was an extremely good film. With a very interesting relationship going on between the two main leads that was deeply memorable. It was like really well done, but it didn't stick with me very much. And like, I may have to, I guess, rewatch it in the future just to make sure, but I may actually also put this in enjoyed, because it was a very good film with very good performances, and it was absolutely very shippable in a very complicated way. But for whatever reason, it just didn't stick. It passed by for me. So in that case, it would be more like giving it a second chance to kind of make sure that I just wasn't stupid at the time. But other than that, I think it would have to go down and enjoyed. That is a good film, though. It's funny how it didn't. I'll have to rewatch it eventually. Okay. Oh my god, the gift that is Moonlight Chicken. Okay. I will never stop saying it. I wish that show had a better name. Moonlight Chicken. It was a gift in so many ways. It is the best, off the top of my head, the best Thai BL series. No. Oh, no. Sorry. 8th Sense was South Korean. Sorry. I don't know why. Yeah. In terms of Thai BL series, quality-wise, Moonlight Chicken's the one to beat, in my opinion. They really, I can't sing enough praises about it. If you're like, I'm gonna get started and I'm gonna start watching Thai BLs, do you have any recommendations? I would be like, don't start with Moonlight Chicken, because it will spoil you for the rest. To be very honest. In a like more objective kind of thing. What's funny about this is that I'm putting Moonlight Chicken in God tier because so far it just hasn't made that leap that we've talked about over into part of my psyche. However, I also have not rewatched it yet. So it, kind of with others earlier in the tier, could very much stand to, it might make that little jump when I go and rewatch it and be like, what was I thinking? I must be obsessed with this show until the day I die. But if I could not put this in anything lower than God tier, and be honest. So it's going God tier, and it fucking deserves it. I said it at the very beginning that 2023 was going to be a really good year. We're almost halfway through the year, and I have been so absolutely right. Thank you about this. We are getting a lot this year. So much. A League of Noblemen and Moonlight Chicken alone. And the 8th Sense. They all happened this year. And they're all God tier. I'm just saying. My Policeman was a sweepstakes winner Yeah, was a sweepstakes winner over on Patreon. That's the it goes back and forth between I think the 50s and the 90s, I believe. And this is that historical queer drama with Harry Styles, and it was really really good. I think I said it during the credits of that movie that it occupies a much needed space in queer representation. And it delightfully subverted my expectations in the end. I was dead ass certain it was going to go one way, and then it didn't. And then it made a bolder and sorely needed choice that I deeply appreciate. And Harry Styles was extremely good. All three of there are three main characters in that, and all three of them did outstanding jobs, both their younger actors and their older present day in the 90s selves. They all did incredible jobs. Harry Styles had one of the toughest jobs in that movie, and he really succeeded in a way that I was not expecting. I would probably put that in adored for me, but I can very easily see this becoming like part of other people's psyche. And honestly, considering what they did with the ending is really what changed it from I was thinking, I was like, this is going to be a movie that I really intensely love, that's really well done, that I never watch again. And then because they went in a different direction, I'm like, I could rewatch this. Maybe not often, because it's very emotionally fraught. And it's not the easiest thing to watch, really. From a purely just emotionally kind of devastating place. But I adored it. I loved it. It was so good. It was such a surprise. I was not expecting to enjoy it as much as I did. I recommend. I highly recommend. Old Fashioned Cupcake was another surprise. Japanese, this was a Japanese BL series. That was just as I was not expecting to enjoy it as much as I did. This was another one, like, if you liked Blooming, and you liked the 8 cents, Old Fashioned Cupcake would be like, I think, the slightly lighter part of like a trio, if you were going to make a trio out of them. It was very grounded, workplace romance, fantastic ship, fantastic actors for that ship. I was on the edge of my seat the whole time from a purely just romantic standpoint. It was such a great little like romantic drama. It was so surprising. I would definitely put it on the same level as Blooming. I adored it. I loved it. I'll be rewatching it someday. Yeah. It was just so good. They're starting to form this little like subgenre of BL series between those three shows that I'm very excited about, because that is so up my alley and what I deeply want. Oh my god, you know what I forgot? No, because I didn't react to it. Oh shit. Okay, damn. Well, I didn't react to it, but another which was my own damn mistake. Another show that would kind of fit in right in there with whatever little pocket 8 cents Blooming and Old Fashioned Cupcake has going on. What Did You Eat Yesterday would fit right in. I feel like if there were kind of two sides to the coin, Old Fashioned Cupcake and What Did You Eat Yesterday, ironically food related, both of those titles, would wind up kind of like on one side of the coin, and 8 cents and Blooming would wind up on the other, and they just create this wonderful little pocket of, you know, grounded, delightful queer stories. Oh my god. Like, they should be their own little their own little mega fandom. Uh, oh man, and it's been a second since I watched Old Fashioned Cupcake. I should really rewatch that. That was such a good time. The Old Guard. The Old Guard. This channel owes a lot to the Old Guard. I'm pretty sure this is the reaction that's... It's one of the most viewed reactions I have. It's top 3, certainly. They're competing with a couple of the Kin Porsche reactions, I believe. So, and but this was very, very early on in the channel. This was super early on. This was actually probably the first one that really took off. And so this was responsible for bringing in a lot of subscribers kind of right out of the gate. This was a really big video for me, and thank God, because I fucking love this movie. And like, sequel when? When are they finally giving us the sequel? And they did so many things for like genre queerness with them that I'm like, whoa. I believe they filmed, actually. They have like filmed the sequel. It's coming. It's just not coming fast enough. You would think, it being genre queerness, that it would become part of my psyche, because I do have a particular weakness for genre queerness. However, it kind of hasn't. I think, oddly enough, because given what just how much I do love the Old Guard, I wouldn't necessarily put it up now, especially now that we have some examples of the God tier. It's like, would I put this in that same group of God tier, oh my God, I love this in such a specific way type things? I don't think I would. I think it more kind of fit in vibes in here, which is weird for me to say. Because for all intents and purposes, it feels like it should go higher, but it makes more sense here. And like I did, again, it was one of those things, I adore the Old Guard. It was so good. I'm clawing my face for the sequel. 1000%. Huh. And you'd think it would. This is the thing about just purely subjective, like, favorite lists, is that sometimes you can't even really, like, explain things. It's just how it is. Huh. I'm mad at my own ranking. What is this? But I can't argue with it, because it's legit how I feel. This is so weird. This is a very strange experience. Portrait of a Lady on Fire. Portrait of a Lady on Fire. I have not rewatched it. This was another early one for the channel, actually. I have not rewatched it since I watched it the first time, I don't think. And if you know, you know. If you've seen them both, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But when talking about endings, the ending of this is probably why I haven't rewatched it. Even though it was a stunning film. From top to bottom. And an exceptional experience. I personally cannot bring myself to rewatch it for ending purposes. Whereas with My Policeman, like I said, because of what they chose to do at the ending, that was much more... My speed is not the right phrase to use. But Portrait of a Lady on Fire deserved all of the, like, attention that it got. In fact, if I remember correctly, it probably deserved more. but it's a historical sapphic quiet, drama. It's very subtle and slower paced, so it's actually not surprising that this didn't get even more attention than it did, which is kind of unfair. But it feels weird to put it down here with enjoyed because it's so good. But that's where it goes. Huh. But shouldn't it go? Wow, I really am. I'm arguing with my own list at this point. Wow. Okay. You know how there was a stretch there where there was like all of the historical sapphic stuff that came out kind of over the past few years, and like all of it was good, and that's not fair. The Portrait of a Lady on Fire is absolutely one of those things. It's like sapphic historicals became its own little subgenre there for a while, and this is one of the best things to come out of it. 1000%. And if you're like, sapphic, historical, sounds like something I'm interested in, Portrait of a Lady on Fire should be on this list. Should be high on your to watch list. Just saying. The Sandman. Ooh, the Sandman. Oh, the Sandman. Who didn't fucking love the Sandman? Sandman more of a queer-friendly universe than I think any one particular ship. For me personally, I know that there's at least one ship that has taken off thanks to the show, which I totally understand. But for me, it was about the benevolence of a queer-friendly universe. You know what I mean? Yeah. And also, like, Neil Gaiman's amazing. This whole concept, this whole world is amazing. Everything is, like, just so great. There's still that one thing that I do not talk about that didn't happen in that show because it didn't. And I still need to write Neil Gaiman an angry Tumblr ask about it. Although I'm sure he got plenty. He made me feel things. Anyway, but I think this would really more go in adored than like really, really god tier. Yeah. Especially since like I didn't come out of it with any one particular ship, I don't think. There's that one episode. I know everybody really loved episode, I think it was 6. But my favorite episode of that season was episode 5. It was the one that everyone else found really hard to watch. And it is really hard to watch. Episode 5 is god tier. Episode 5 reached a place that I would love to see the show reach for again when it comes back for season 2, that I am deeply looking forward to. But as a whole it doesn't sit in god tier for me, except for episode 5. Episode 5 is Stephen King Who, episode 5. Resident Evil 6. Technically, I did not finish this playthrough on the channel. For various, I think, technical difficulty reasons just like never really got to picking it back up again. But I had played it before, so I can rank it, because even though I didn't finish it as a reaction, I know what the rest of that I've been playing it ever since it came out. Because it's actually one of my favorite Resident Evils, which is a controversial opinion. Gameplay-wise, I can understand why people were frustrated with it. But, like, story and character-wise, it was just so... It occupies that really weird Resident Evil space of... I love it so much. While at the same time, Resident Evil is absolutely a flawed fave. I can't even really explain why my brain is so obsessed with the Resident Evil series as a whole. But it really, really is. And there are 3 main storylines in Resident Evil 6, and the one that I played through was, you know, the gay one, with Chris and Piers. And oh shit, if they don't, if that story doesn't, and if they weren't, you know, as flawed fave as it is, that is part of my psyche. Resident Evil 6. It's legitimately one of my favorite, if not possibly like my absolute favorite Resident Evil game. And they've had a lot of really good ones. But that has to go in part of my psyche. That is just a part of me. For a while there, Chris and Piers were like the gayest thing that you could find in games. They were a big deal in their heyday. Like, you did not see, like, game shipping is not as popular, at least as I have found, as, like, you know, TV shows and movies, etc. So the fact that, like, you could find a lot of art, you could find a lot of GIFs made from people, and obviously, you know, fanfic, just the fandom around those two is one of the biggest you'll find in terms of queer shipping in video games, for a reason. For a reason. And something about Resident Evil 6 as a whole just owns my soul. It just owns part of my psyche, and I would have to make an entire whole ass video essay about why Resident Evil lives in my brain in the way that it does. But it does. And so it has to go down as part of my psyche. Sasaki Tomino. Oh my god, is that the only anime on this list? I think it is. We need to fix that. Hopefully soon with Buddy Daddies. Sasaki Tomino very much is in the Heartstopper realm of things. And but okay. All right. So it didn't become part of my personality in the way that Heartstopper did. And I would even, adored feels kind of right. Cause like, man, if you have even the slightest inkling for, like queer contemporary stories, you absolutely should watch Sasaki Tomino. I don't think it would necessarily change minds, which is why if you were like, I don't really like historical, or maybe you're not really into like gay anime, or you're just not into anime, or like whatever, I wouldn't be like, then you should watch Sasaki and Mino anyway, like regardless, like no matter what. It didn't really sit in that spot for me. But you know, I just still fucking adored that whole series. It made me so happy and put me through such an emotional ringer. And just like Heartstopper, it had like your lighthearted stuff, and it was very much like a rom-com, but there was still so much real deep internal struggle going on in that series that just cleaved me emotionally. Like, my face was like right up against the screen, just loving the hell out of those boys. Holy God. But it's very much something that I would recommend to people who already have an inkling for shows like that, if that makes sense. I'm really wondering how batshit I sound to y'all. By the way, I have never talked this in depth about what I love and why, and what makes me put something above another series. I have no idea if it's in even remotely a normal way or not. Probably not. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Um Sense8. This one might surprise people. I'm kind of surprised myself. It did not really become part of my psyche. It's more god tier. It's one of those shows where during the time I'm watching it, nothing else fucking matters. Nothing matters. Absolutely nothing. The only thing that exists is Sense8 when I am watching Sense8. Like, that's it. And it has greatly impacted me as a story for the character. And of course, it's one of the gayest shows on this list, obviously. And it's incredible, and it was like so far ahead of its time. And yet it did not tip into the like obsessive fandom parts of me. It tipped into my writer brain in that I will absolutely be looking to Sense8 in the future, if slash when, really more when, I decide to write something that comes with a like really full cast like that. I will absolutely be looking to Sense8 for how and what they did, and just how they did it so well and so perfectly, and like made me love so many people like equally. Don't ask me to choose a favorite character from Sense8. I can't. I refuse. I will never. It's not gonna happen. Why it didn't hop the fence over to part of my psyche, I really don't know. Because that show just means a ton. And in a way, it's absolutely something that, you know, I guess if you want to get to know my taste in like my ideal form of queer entertainment, specifically, very specifically, then you absolutely need to watch Sense8. That's very close to what I hope to strive for and achieve in my own stuff someday. But I was very surprised when I was trying not to think about making this live stream and then thinking about it, because that's how ADD works. I was surprised to be like, actually, Sense8 didn't become part of my psyche the way I thought it would. However, it deserves it. It is in good company, and it deserves to be in that company. 7 Days was a sweepstakes winner. Japanese, yes, and like contemporary, like school days kind of thing. Very quiet. I have not rewatched it since. They were great. The guys were great. This was kind of an older one, quote unquote. I believe this one was from around like either the late zeros or the early tens at most. For some reason, I want to say 2009. That's probably wrong. So that was like, for BL series, that's like a different era. When you're talking about BL series from East Asia, that's like a whole other thing. I enjoyed it. I really did. I really liked it. And I thought it was a great little... It was just a great little story, very much like of the time. And had to have been one of those little projects in Japan that kind of moved the needle a little bit forward at that time in Japan when it came to queer representation. I really did enjoy it. It was just such a nice little romance for these two guys. It was just lovely. I enjoyed it. It wasn't like I wasn't obsessed with it. I didn't, it didn't stick in my brain in comparison to everything else that I was reacting to. But like, it was a pleasant experience, especially if you were like interested in what BL series looked like back then. you know, then that should absolutely like be on your list. But it was nice. It was lovely. I really did like it. Kind of ditto for Shoot Me in the Heart, which was, I think it came out a little bit later than 7 Days. I'm struggling to remember its country of origin. I feel like such a filthy American. I want to say it was also Japanese, but that might be bleed over from 7 Days. I'm sure somebody in the chat knows. I feel like Shoot Me in the Heart happened more in the 10s. And this was a delightful, like, mental health kind of surprise that I wasn't expecting. I had no idea what to expect from this movie, but it was rather delightful. And like, they were great. It was very like Girl Interrupted for the gays, whereas Girl Interrupted is very much for the sapphics, right? This really struck me as Girl Interrupted for the gays. I would put it they were really I'm also kind of struggling with a door to, you know, I'll put it in shippable, but this one's really hard. Cause like if I would rewatch it, I don't think I would skim through anything. But that's difficult. It could go anywhere from adored to enjoyed. Because I really did. Girl Interrupted is one of the movies that is part of my psyche. So like gay Girl Interrupted goes a long way with me. So in that way I kind of feel like it should be in adored. But I guess because like I might rewatch it in the future, but I don't feel the strongest need to. So then I guess that drops down into shippable. That's weird though. That's iffy. I'm not sure. Squid Game, despite not being as queer as I would have hoped, that's still god tier. That's one of the best shows I've ever seen, period, end of story. To the point where I don't know why it hasn't become part of my psyche. It just kind of hasn't. I don't know why. I need to rewatch that. It is definitely going to happen. It deserves all the hype that it got. I'm sure some people, because there's always people who think something's overrated, right? Especially when something is hyped that much. In my opinion, this is one of the rare cases where it 1000% lived up to the hype. And I'm really excited / terrified that I believe they decided to do a season 2, even though it wasn't originally planned. And I was furious that it wasn't originally planned, because considering like the very, very end of it, I'm like, how does this not lead into a season 2? But anyway, Squid Game, one of the best. I don't know what you want me to say. Everybody should be watching this show, and pretty much everybody did. So fair. Star Trek the original series was the first thing I ever reacted to on this channel, and it actually technically wasn't a reaction. It was a rewatch. Because I've been watching it since 2009, and I'm never gonna stop. And I was very nervous about starting Gaywatch, because previously I had just had The Ship's Closet, which was something specific to the original Kirk and Spock. That was one of my first, if not possibly the first, foray into actually really trying to do YouTube. A long time ago. And so, very obviously, Star Trek the original series is part of my psyche. I have written God, how long was it? And I didn't even finish it, but I wrote over 250K of meta for that show. Just for Kirk and Spock. Just for examining Kirk and Spock. And kind of the whole show, and having fun with the whole show, and kind of like going like literally blow by blow. It's a weird project, that commentary series, but it was really, really long. And I didn't even finish it. I went through literally every single freaking moment of every episode in season 1, and we are reconnecting. We have reconnected. So if you saw any stuttering just then, it should be fine now. Just going back a couple of sentences. I have done several fan videos for Star Trek, but there was probably only 1 or 2 that I would consider actually good. And it's where everything started for me. It's what got me into queer fandom. It's all of that jazz. And it is struggling to reconnect again, but then it did. Stay connected, please. Thank you. So, there is no me without Star Trek the original series. That's just how it goes. If we're talking purely how much of, in the top row, if we're talking purely how much of my psyche is taken up by the series, then like Star Trek would be at the top. Yeah, there's no putting it above. It's the OG literally, and also for me. So my life was permanently changed by it. It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. It's stuttering again, I'm sure. It should be back now. I don't know why they're having an issue. Oh, sure. Clouds have moved in. We're changing internet service providers at the end of this month, by the way, to solve all of these ridiculous internet issues that I apologize for. We're hopping internet service providers very soon. Not soon enough, but very soon. So, anyway, Strangers from Hell, deeply uncomfortable viewing experience in a way that I will study. Also, it just so unbelievably good. I watched this before I watched Bad and Crazy. This also has Lee Donwa, and it made me respect him even more, because I think when I watched Strangers from Hell, the only memory I had of Lee Donwa before then was vague memories of enjoying him in Goblin, which I deeply need to rewatch now that I'm obsessed with him. And I was like, oh wow, okay, Lee Donwa, on my radar. And then Bad and Crazy pushed it up over the top. The queerness in it, kind of, in a way, has... Oh, I can't really say that, because that's spoilers. But if you know, you know. But it's still just as deeply uncomfortable, as deeply well done, as it is queer. I mean, the implications, you know? And it's one of those things where you don't have a good time watching this show. Nobody has a good time watching this show. And yet, you will not forget this show, and you will be like, yeah, that's definitely a fave. That I would rewatch more if it didn't make me so deeply and viscerally uncomfortable. Holy shit. I have never been more uncomfy during a series. Like, ever. But I loved it. I loved it. At the same time. And that's so conflicting. But I loved it. From start to end. I had the best time. But I also wanted to kind of claw my own face off. Which was the point, and they did that on purpose. So, kudos to them. Good lord. Oh, The Untamed. This is really going to surprise people. Part of my psyche. I don't even really need to say... Do I need to say anything? I don't really need to say anything about The Untamed. It the Old Guard was a nice little like jumping off point for the show early on. The Untamed was the first big push. It's what put me over initially 1,000 subscribers. So just as a YouTuber, I am always going to be deeply, that's not a word. Deeply grateful for the Untamed. And then it also became an annoying part of my psyche. I am currently trying to figure out an outline for this fic so that I can keep writing it. But it's a challenge, but I'm working on it. But it is one of the two projects that I am currently kind of doing at the same time because I'm ADD and can't focus on one thing at a time ever. But it's the other thing is a contemporary reincarnated Wang Xian fic for the Untamed, because the Untamed is part of my psyche. We are not surprised by this in any way, shape, or form. There is one. I have one. I mean, I have more than one idea, but I have one like holy grail. I must make this fan video at some point in my life before I freaking die. It is near the top of my list in terms of fan vids that I really need to make. And I won't tell you the song, but it's my de facto theme song for not just Wang Xian really, but the show, but also Wang Xian. That needs to happen. But the fic is happening. I'm just having outlining problems. And I even said it at the time, actually. As I was watching The Untamed, I was like, you guys don't understand. This does not happen to me every day. Not everything becomes part of my psyche. And that's true. Although having so many of them up there in the things that are part of my psyche kind of makes me look like a liar. But no, really, I promise. It does not happen every day. Weak hero class automatically goes into God tier. I don't know what you want me to do about it. It is legitimately one of the greatest shows I have ever seen. It is one of the most hard-hitting, pun unfortunately intended, series I've ever seen. It is extremely difficult to watch, but if it is at all possible for you to watch it, you should watch it. I am like not the same person after seeing this series, and apparently it was just the run-up to season 2. So I don't know what my brain is going to do with season 2. But it's not the particular type of thing that leaps over into fanish, obsession, must, and all of that. So it doesn't tip over into part of my psyche. But it is just legitimately one of the greatest things I've ever seen. Period. End of story. I cannot believe that it exists. And it's oh god, it's South Korean. I'm almost positive it's South Korean. And one of the greatest things to ever come out of South Korea. Can somebody tell me if I'm imagining that weak hero class coming from Korea? I'm pretty sure. Yeah, thank you, Lila. It is South Korean. Okay. I can't even really talk about weak hero class. We don't want to go there. I don't want to go there. You can't go there. It's too traumatic. The Witcher, it's funny. As a whole, somehow between, the games and the show, it is so deeply a flawed fave. I do love The Witcher. I love so many things about The Witcher. I love Geralt. I had been so hoping that there would be something between Geralt and essentially Jaskier in like the third game that I could like latch onto, like in a bigger way. But I didn't get that, and then they just handed it to me on a silver platter for the actual show. Firstly, by casting Henry Cavill, who's in like my top 3 favorite men period ever. I can't think about him too much, because if I do, it will start a downward spiral into a very annoying place. So I actually don't obsess about him as much as I should, as a means of self-protect. Listen, it's deep. I heard that, ma'am. It's just a whole thing. So I love The Witcher. However, this has to go down into shippable because for a variety of reasons I can't get into, whenever I do rewatch the series, I will be skimming through. It basically probably wouldn't even be a rewatch of the series per se. It would be skimming through to the good action-y bits, the good Geralt-y bits, and then anything between Geralt and Jaskier. I don't imagine that I will keep watching the show beyond season 3 because there will be no more Henry Cavill after season 3, and after that, I just highly doubt that there's going to be the same chemistry between Geralt and Jaskier. Like, that, but they're so intensely shippable, though, that they are almost single-handedly why the shippable tier exists. They're like the tier. I think in fandom it's usually called the trope namer, but they would be like the tier namer. Like, they're why that tier is there, essentially. Word of Honor, not unlike Guardian, I have yet to rewatch, and I feel really bad about it. Because it should not be neglected in that way. God tier. It would, wow, you can really watch the train wreck happen in my brain in real time, can't you? Okay, nobody asked you, ma'am. Peanut gallery over there, which is usually my job. So, Word of Honor. I mean, it had the unfortunate placement of coming immediately after The Untamed, which, as we all know, annoying part of my psyche. And, you know, the thing that comes after the thing that has fundamentally changed your life, it isn't going to live up to the thing that fundamentally changed your life, so. But at the same time, man, it's Word of Honor. Like, how does that not... And, like, they really did the most with a dwindling to non-existent budget. I think, if I remember correctly, there were, like, maybe once or twice where I kind of wasn't as into some plot stuff as I feel like I could have been, but I may not be remembering that correctly. It is a crime that I have not rewatched the show. It really is. Like, I legitimately, this is my big controversy as a channel and as a YouTube creator. I'm going to make a whole apology video because I have not rewatched Word of Honor or Guardian, and that's really just a fucking crime. It really is. It's shameful. I'm going to put it in God tier. And just like several others, upon rewatch, it could jump to part of my psyche. There's a decent chance. Between this and any of the other ones that I mentioned that could make the jump, like Bad and Crazy, Beyond Evil, 50-50 shot that on rewatch, I'm like, no, why isn't this plastered on every inch of real estate in my brain? I just feel so bad that I haven't rewatched it. Okay. Yin Yang Master, Dream of Eternity was finally a sweepstakes winner after going months of commandeering like 50% of the vote and then still not being chosen when I randomly selected it via a randomization website. But it finally happened. It took like 4 rounds of voting. for this to finally be voted on, but damn if the patrons weren't like loyal to this. They were like, no, we will show up for as long as it takes, and it took a while, but I finally got to watch it, and it was a rather like overwhelming time, because there was just a lot in those 2 hours. Was it like 2.5 hours? There was so much that then went on to be unbelievably queer on so many levels that you would have to rewatch it a few times just to comprehend all the different levels. And I mean, hell, you have one of the guys from Yin Yang Master would be in League of Noblemen, and do a really bang up job in a League of Noblemen, but also with what he was here. Does it go into God tier though? I haven't rewatched it. I absolutely kept it. In fact, I think I've kept damn near everything that I've watched so far for Gaywatch, which is ridiculous. The hit ratio is just stupid. Would Yin Yang Master go in God tier or adored? I think it would have to go in adored. That feels right, because I loved the shit out of it. But then looking at the company that it would keep up in God tier, I don't know if it quite reached that for me, but I still just love it to pieces. Just so much. I really named that tier correctly. Yeah, I just adored it. I'm so happy that that patrons were like so stubborn for so long to get me to watch it. I really do need to rewatch it. Gorgeously filmed as well. I am deeply sad that we will never get that damn sequel. No, yeah, I loved it. This is one that actually, upon rewatch, might make a jump up to God tier. I don't think I said that about Adored going to God tier. That one could make a jump though, however. The last one, finally, after this whole saga, is Young Royals. There have been 2 seasons. The third and final season, I believe we're getting at the end of this year, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure we're getting at the end of this year. It definitely felt like something that was structured for a 3-season story. So I'm very glad that they are ending it when they should, rather than the alternative. Wow.
Sorry,
Wow,
it's
sir.
because I'm in here.
Yeah, no, I typically actually like leave it cracked so that they can, so that they can come in here. And or leave it cracked because of the fountain, but then that way the cats can still come in here. So that they're not howling like pathetic love whores. Oh, we're gonna have another cat cameo. We are hanging in suspense on Young Royals. Hi. Hi. Were we not about you? We were not about you. Hi.
Sorry to interrupt. I just thought both cats should get equal airtime today.
No, that's true. I had not thought about it, but that is true. Hi.
They must meet their
especially since
fans.
You know, this one's mine.
True.
Yeah, hello. He's such a whore. He's such a whore in all deeply lovable ways.
Babe.
He is.
The best. Come here.
So now that he's in the room and not howling outside the room,
I know, right?
Young Royals. This is absurd that God tier is the longest list but Young Royals has to go in God tier because it's just that good. It hasn't. It has become part of my psyche for whatever reasons, passing understanding. But it's God tier. It's that freaking good. It deserves to be up there with all those. If you liked The Eighth Sense, you should be watching Young Royals. Pretty much. It can't go anywhere other than God tier. But it's ridiculous that over the course of everything that I've watched on this psyche, as I let things reconnect. There we go. It is fundamentally ridiculous that after, I think there were like 42, there were 42 things total sorted into this list. And hang on, 1, 2, 3. Over half are in God tier or above. That's ridiculous. That's weird. That's freakish. That's some gay witchcraft. I can't. I won't. Holy crap. It also feels like I've reacted to... No, it feels like I've reacted to more than this because in some cases there are like multiple seasons of a thing. Or the show is particularly long even though it's not technically cut up into seasons. Like there's 50 episodes of The Untamed, for God's sakes. And like 37 of Word of Honor. I forget how long Guardian is, but I think it was still somewhere around 40. Wow. Just wow. Since all right, it's 7:30. We're kind of bang on in terms of time. And while I don't even want to try to actually put the part of my psyche in any kind of order, I will say, however, since they're like 11, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, there are 11 series, or 11 things, really, because Detroit's in there. That's part of my psyche. I think if I was going to give like a top 5 most psyche, let's see. Then in that case, The Devil Judge belongs over there. The Untamed belongs over there. Star Trek belongs over there. That's absolutely a top 3. I think Euphoria. I mean, even this is hard because, like, I feel like Heaven Official's Blessing and Guardian, though, kind of both. But then again, I feel okay. So I guess it's more of a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. More of a top 6, which is why I never try to actually order anything. And this top 6 is not in its own order because no, my brain shorts out. I can't do it. But I feel like, just in general, the group towards the left would probably be even more intense than the grouping to the right. but they're still all annoying parts of my psyche. And it's hilarious that I haven't even finished Heaven Official's Blessing yet. I'm not even at the end of volume 3. There's like what? 7 volumes to that son of a bitch? If not like 9. Isn't there 9? Maybe there's 8. There's a lot.
Keep guessing numbers.
Okay? Ma'am. I haven't even finished it yet, though. And yet, not only do I know that it's part of my psyche, I know that it's highly ranked in part of my psyche. Which that's MXTX for you. 8? I always either want to say 7 or 9, and then someone's always like, there's 8. And I'm, every time. So, this is what the first 3 years of Gaywatch has looked like. That ain't bad. I mean, that's an insanely high bar. And we keep getting great stuff this year, and we will keep getting great stuff for the rest of this year. To say nothing of season 2 of Heartstopper and potentially season 3 of Young Royals and whatever the hell comes next for the people who made Detroit Become Human. They announced, actually, there's a thing that's coming out fairly soon. The queer potential didn't look that great, but the story potential looked fucking phenomenal, as you can imagine. I'm trying to remember what they announced, though, and I can't. But I know that they have finally, Quantic Dream, they have finally announced about some of the stuff that they've been working on, and I think one of them comes out fairly soon. But, let's see. More volumes of Heaven Official's Blessing. I'm not sure if they're doing more of Euphoria. People have talked about how they want a season 2 of Devil Judge, but don't touch it. Don't touch it. It's perfect. Yet on the other hand, if they did a season 2 of Devil Judge, I would be first in line to watch it. I'm a hypocrite. What can I tell you? Wow. All right. So, I actually got them all into tiers. And I think there were only a couple where I'm like, yeah, I'm placing it, but I'm still kind of unsure. That is way more definitive than I thought this was gonna be. Because Jesus. Wow. I hope this was interesting and entertaining. And also, yay! 3 years of Gaywatch. Holy crap. The fact that I was able to do this and then have it stick and then also get a Patreon full of extremely lovely people who care about me enough to support the madness that goes on at Gaywatch is unreal. It's just unreal. If I ever stop to think about it too long, I start to cry. So, we're not gonna. I'm just gonna say thank you so much for all of this that I am looking at and for this channel giving me all of these things to love and become fundamental parts of my psyche. Basically anything not from the UK or America on this list, I would not have found if it wasn't for The Untamed. And then, obviously, if it wasn't for you guys. Which just blows my mind, because even though I only really delved into more than anime and some live-action non-queer South Korean stuff, I finally branched out from then. Only 3 years ago, it feels like I've never lived any other way. And I don't want to, which is actually kind of much the same as Star Trek. Trying to imagine like me before Star Trek is legitimately difficult to fathom, even though I was like 22 when I fell headfirst into Star Trek and Kirk and Spock. But like the Untamed and then getting launched into the glory that is East Asian media and occasionally South. I just can't picture it. And it feels like I've been doing Gaywatch for a lot longer, but like in a good way. Like similarly to Star Trek and The Untamed. It's so weird. See, I'm talking about it too long and I'm gonna start to cry. Picturing, my life before Gaywatch is really weird. It no longer computes. So I'm gonna be one of those annoying YouTubers that sticks around for a really long time. Because who wants to think about not doing this, not having created something like this that had enough people hop on board with what I'm trying to do, that it therefore becomes a viable option for me. That's not, of the many things that I can't fathom today, that is one of them. So, if I keep talking, I'm gonna cry. So, thank you so much for celebrating 3 years of Gaywatch. Here's to 3 more, and 3 more after that, and 3 more after that, and so on and so forth. That is true. The wife would come and say goodbye, but she is literally laying on my bed and she is covered in cats.
I made the mistake of laying down.
You did. She made the mistake of laying down, and this is what happens when she lays down. The cats immediately pile on top of her. So it's currently illegal for her to move, but she does say goodbye.
Yeah, bye guys.
And I will. What the hell is today? What the hell is today? I'm trying to focus so hard on not crying. It's Monday, right? Thank you.
Like it's literally the first day you did this to yourself.
It's literally Monday. No, the gods did this to me because it's not my fault that I just so happened to start this channel on May 1st, 3 years ago. Anyway, tomorrow is more Heaven Official's Blessing. We come down to the last couple of sessions for volume 3, and that always makes me nervous to get towards the end of a volume of anything written by MXTX. And then after that, we start volume 5 of Modao Zushi. That unfortunately will not be streamed because I have it on good authority that volume 5 is a little spicy for live air. And what's funny is that I'll be able to read it on camera as per usual, like a live stream, be able to post the video totally fine. But for live streams, it's not, it's a little bit more sensitive. So volume 5 is still happening in May, but it won't be live streamed. But it will basically be the same thing. It'll be the same vibe. It just won't literally be live. But was there anything else that I needed to? So tomorrow is more Heaven Official's Blessed as it disconnects again. And then comes back. Although I believe part 2 of our discussion over on Janae's channel went up today. I'm pretty sure it went up today, and it is up there now. Also, I knew I was forgetting something. Okay, so just a few minutes after this stream ends, another live stream that was previously not public on this channel will go public. Basically, a little over a month ago, some patrons and the wife got together and essentially like love bombed me. They spent months shipping gifts to my mother-in-law's house so that the wife could gather them all, and there were a lot of them, and come sit down with me on a live stream that I knew I had no idea what was happening. And then just one after another for like 2 hours, I was just opening gifts and reading really lovely notes and just getting love bombed within an inch of my life. And this is true. You can ask the wife. Immediately after that live stream ended, I literally laid face down on my bed and just sobbed for like 15 minutes. Because I was so overwhelmed. I was so overwhelmed by all of the... That's where the fan came from in the background, the Word of Honor fan that's sitting back there. That was one of the gifts. And then like hanging down, you can see the tassel from Wushan's flute from the Untamed. That's also where that came from. So they will start to surface in ways. And but so that has been just over. Reconnecting once again. So I swear to God, I'll be changing my internet by the end of the month. Thank you so much for watching. It's crazy that you do. I will continue doing the damn thing, and we just can continue loving queer media a little too much. I will see you guys very, very soon. And please, for the love of fucking God, take care of yourself. I chose that outro line at the beginning of this channel for a very deliberate reason. I took the tack of, okay, what are you gonna say to say goodbye? Make it the one thing that you want to tell people above all else. The one message that you would say to people, just and make your outro that. And that is what I did. It's extremely deliberate choice. So when I say take care of yourself, I like really, really mean it to the utmost extent, because I put too much thought into things. There's a reason I do everything on this channel. There's a very specific reason. And what I don't do on this channel. I love you guys. Take care of yourselves. I will see you very soon. Happy 3 years of Gaywatch.